Hi, welcome to the first of our workshops on Awaken Your Inner Herbalist. I'm Karen Creighton, in case you haven't seen me already on the videos, and I'm so excited to be able to introduce this workshop, which is all about using culinary herbs and turning them into a medicinal. But first, I'd like to go into what does a herbalist mean? How have we evolved? So if we go back in time, go back to our Stone Age selves. So go back, way back. We, as hunter-gatherers, would have our jobs to do. The males generally were the ones who went out and did the hunting. The females went and gathered, so hunter-gatherers. But the females actually evolved finding herbs and berries and roots and things that would not only feed us, but would actually help improve our health when we got injured or when we got sick. So over the years, over the decades, over the centuries, the herbal remedies that we've come to know and love have evolved. We had a bit of a blip between the 1450s and the 1750s roughly. What happened was many of our remedies and things got lost due to the religious male wanting to get control over everyone, and so consequently we had the witch hunt. So many of our wonderful remedies and things got lost or buried. There were still the wonderful healing people in the village, but most of the ones with the real deep knowledge got hunted down and killed, basically. So what we have is we have now a herbal history that has a bit of a gap in it, but now as time is going on, those gaps are being filled in. And so this is the exciting part. So when we got to the 20th century, a lot of our herbal sort of knowledge and things got knocked a bit further back, because what happened is as medicine came along providing drugs, people felt they didn't need the herbal knowledge anymore. And also as people moved into cities and away from their roots of where they would have been in nature and everything else, what happened is the knowledge again got knocked back, but there were always healers in the background. So what's happening now is a resurgence of natural remedies coming to the forefront, where most people, like yourself, are really wanting to get involved in their own processes of healing. The plants that we have in this wonderful world of ours have amazing uses. So what we're going to cover today is a few basics. They're really simple, but you might not have thought to use them in this way. So we're going to start with the basics of health, really. And so I just want to sort of go through a few of them. So this is ginger. You've seen ginger, I'm sure, and used it many times. But as a remedy, it's amazing. It's an anti-inflammatory. It's a herbal antibiotic, not broad spectrum, but it can knock on the head some bacteria and viruses. Also, it has an awful lot of use if you're feeling nauseous or for for travel sickness. So any root, if you're wanting to use it medicinally, needs to be decocted. Now, what that basically means is you need to, instead of pouring hot water over a tea, which you might do with ginger, you might sort of chop some ginger up, pour boiling water over it, and you get quite a nice flavour. But you're not extracting all the nutritional components of this lovely root by doing that. So what you need to do is you need to simmer it in liquid for approximately 20 minutes. What you can do with this is you can make a really strong mixture. By making a really strong mixture with the tea, You can put it on, what I tend to do is I tend to put it into ice cube containers, put it in the freezer, and then pop it into a cup and pour boiling water over it. There you have a ready-made drink that is not only wonderful tasting, it's also very settling for the stomach and digestion, but also it's really good if you're having a cough and cold coming on. You can add a bit of lemon to that, and so therefore it's an amazing, wonderful root that we can use in so many ways. It's soothing, it makes you feel really good, and if you get PMT, it can really help with that too, because it goes deep within, and for extremities as well. So if you get cramps and things like that, this can be a good one to have. Right, so that's ginger. And then we come to the humble onion. Yeah, this has a huge amount of amazing properties. Again, like most herbs, most of the spicy foods, it has antibiotic components, anti-inflammatory components. Now, you get a booklet with this workshop that you've got online there, and you can just have a look, and it tells you all the components of it. Now, onions, like garlic, contain sulfur. Sulfur is a wonderful detoxifier, as well as the other things I've just explained. So this lovely, lovely food that we take so for granted can be an amazing healer. So if you wanted to help with a chest infection, for example, you can boil down some onions, and you don't need to take the skin off. I'm going to show you a remedy in a minute which contains all of these components I'm going through. You don't need to take the skin off. You just chop it roughly and simmer it until it's reduced. Put water over the top of it until it's reduced by half. Strain it, and then you can leave it to cool. Then what you can do is you can put a few spoonfuls in a foot bath, in a warm foot bath, and that can really help with chest infections and colds. And so that is an amazing, amazing remedy that you just have in your cupboard. I'm sure most of you will have it sitting in your cupboard. Right, so next, garlic. Very similar in chemical components to wonderful onion. But what it does have is has a chemical component called allicin. And allicin is a phenomenal, you've probably heard of garlic for sinus infections, for coughs and colds and everything else. But allicin has been proven to help kill off bacterial infections. This is an antibiotic in your cupboard. It's amazing. Now, what you can do with garlic is you can get a couple of cloves, crush them rough. You don't have to take the skin off when you're using these. Crush them, and then immediately put some olive oil over it. So you can put it in a jar like this, crush, and then put some olive oil over. Make sure you cover it with olive oil, because once the air gets to the garlic, it starts diminishing in its potency. When you do that, you leave that in a warm place, so you can put it in an airing cupboard, on a windowsill on a warm day, just for a few hours. Then you can apply it again to your feet, or to your chest, or your back if you've really got a hacking cough, to your throat, or anywhere really where you have soreness and infection. This is an amazing thing to just have in your fridge when you've done it. And so you can make it up when there's a glut of garlic. Same with the onions. If there's a glut of things, make up your onion juice and freeze it, just like we were talking about the garlic. They are easy, really, really easy. It takes literally a few minutes. So as you will see as we go through, we are going to do a remedy that's going to be transformative for you and your family's health, but will only take a short time. Now, normally with this remedy, I would be using horseradish root. Horseradish root, if you've ever used it, is an amazing nasal clearer. If you've ever made your own horseradish sauce and you've sat there and you've grated it, it gets your whole sinuses clearing. And so that's why I normally use horseradish. Unfortunately, where we live, horseradish doesn't grow in proliferation, and so it's really, really hard to get. So I'm going to use, instead of horseradish, I'm going to use turmeric root. Now, you probably know all about turmeric, which is why I'm not going to really cover it this much on, but I'm going to use it in this remedy quite simply because it's got a huge amount of benefits, and so we might as well add it in. So that's the turmeric root, and then we are going to add chilies. Now, chilies are amazing. They are a little powerhouse of healing in this. Or, of course, you can use it as cayenne pepper. Hot chilies are wonderful to help circulatory disorders, heart health. One of my teachers, Dr. Richard Schultz, his nickname is Cayenne. And the reason he was called Cayenne was because he used to have a beard and he always had cayenne pepper around his mouth. And the reason for that is, it's quite an interesting story, because Richard was born with a congenital heart defect that was discovered when he was in his late teens. And he went to specialists and all sorts of things, and they actually took him to hospital, and he was supposed to have a heart operation, and he was in a ward, and a young man who was next to him, who was in his 20s, went the day before he was scheduled to go, and he never came out of his operation. So Richard decided that it wasn't worth taking the risk, and so what he did was he took himself out of the hospital and went searching for ways to help himself get himself better. All his family were, of course, up in arms and worried about him and everything else, but he found a medical herbalist called Dr. Christopher. And Dr. Christopher is well renowned throughout the Americas because he was an amazing herbalist who has written umpteen dozen books, and his patients just swore by what he did. And what he got Richard to do was to take cayenne pepper. And what cayenne did was help his heart heal, it helped his circulation and his whole health. So do not underestimate this amazing little seed pod, basically, with its seeds in. What I also saw with Richard is he actually had a patient in his car park who suffered from a heart attack while he was there. And Richard went outside, gave him a dose of his tincture in his mouth, and he came out of his heart attack straight away. Of course, they took him to the hospital, but when he went to the hospital, there was no damage to his heart whatsoever, which is unknown really. Once you have a heart attack, there's scarring, and there was no scarring whatsoever. So cayenne pepper can help no matter what stage you're at with your heart health. Helps with circulation. But the other thing is, as cayenne pepper in your kitchen, or if you do anything like weird and wacky, like chopping things up, if you work in the field of building, it's a good idea to have cayenne pepper with you. Why? It stops bleeding in its tracks. I worked as a chef many years ago, and I wish I'd have known what cayenne pepper could do, because I've seen it firsthand, that if you cut yourself, then you pack that cut full of cayenne pepper, it stops the bleeding straight away. But not only that, it actually helps it heal without scarring. My husband is a prime example. We have two examples of him. One where he used cayenne pepper, and one where he went to the hospital and had his cut stitched. He's got a scar where he had the stitching, and he's got no scar or very little scar where he used cayenne pepper. And the healing happens rapidly. So get some cayenne pepper, have it in your kitchen nearby or anywhere where you're likely to cut yourself. So it's a really valuable tool, and doesn't go off either. Okay, so that is the herbal component of what we're going to make now, which is a super tonic. Now, super tonic is actually going to be a tincture. And what a tincture means is that you get these wonderful ingredients and you put them in a jar or a bottle, and you cover the ingredients with a liquid, and the liquid will draw the chemical components of these items into itself. So the liquid becomes the healing part, and so you can keep it for a lot longer. So super tonic. The liquid we're going to use is apple cider vinegar. Now, the apple cider vinegar you have must be opaque. You don't ever use clear apple cider vinegar because it doesn't have what they call the mother in it. The mother is the active constituent of apple cider vinegar. Much more potent, much nicer actually than the ones that have been distilled down and not as pleasant tasting. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to get a piece of ginger, and we're just going to roughly chop it up. Now, I've sent you the list, and so you're more than welcome to chop along with me. So just chop it up roughly. You don't need to peel it, as long as you wash it, and you just need it in smallish chunks. The only reason you need it in smallish chunks is you want to be able to fit as much as you can in your jar. So I'm just going to do a small amount here. So just chop it up roughly and pop it in your jar. Next, I'm going to do onion. Now you just need to take the rough skin off. You don't need all of the peelings and things. And then you just need to cut that, it depends on the size of the onion, but into smallish components, sort of like that, and then I'm going to cut it in half. So roughly equal parts of this. So you're having equal parts of onion and ginger, and then we're going to do equal parts of turmeric. Again, turmeric, you do not need to take the skin off, you just chop it roughly. As you can see, this is not time consuming at all because you don't have the fiddly job of peeling or anything of these things. Then I'm going to add a couple of chilies to this, simply because I really like the effect of chili. And you leave all the wonderful seeds in. Again, just chop up roughly, making sure you don't rub your eyes after opening this because it can really sting. So you only need little bits like that, so just pop them all in. Always do the garlic last. Now, why do we do the garlic last? Again, because if you get air into the garlic clove, it starts diminishing in its potency. So you might as well just wait until last. Doesn't take very long. Again with this, just take off the extra on the outside. And with this amount, I'm only going to use half a head of garlic. I often make very large quantities, and so we tend to use 3 or 4 cloves of garlic, 4 onions, a big thing of ginger like that, and with the horseradish we'd use an equal amount of horseradish. So I'm just going to cut this head of garlic in half, pull it apart, so it's apart like so that the cloves all fall apart, and then we literally just cut them in half. And there they are in the jar. Then you get your apple cider vinegar and you cover. If I was making this at home, or if I was making this here in the shop for clients to use, I'd pack it full so that there's no room to fit any more. And then you put the liquid in, you give it a good shake, then you leave it. Now, you leave it for as long as you possibly can. It will be effective after about 10 days. You don't need to refrigerate, you just need to make sure that this lid fits really, really tightly. And after 10 days, 10 weeks. I mean, the best time is about 4 to 6 weeks because it becomes really very potent. Now, what to do with it after you've made it? It's wonderful. Added a small amount, say a teaspoon, to your salad dressing. So you can make a, so you get 5 teaspoons, 6 teaspoons of your apple cider vinegar, add 1 teaspoon of your super tonic, and then put your oil of whatever you choose, and then you've got a delicious dressing. Or you can use it for medicinal purposes. Now it's absolutely fantastic to help clear the sinuses. So you just use it, you can gargle with it, and then it helps with the sore throat, it helps clear the sinuses and the ears. It's so beneficial. Also, you can use it, you know I talked about using onions in a foot bath, you can add it to a foot bath too. If you're getting severe rashes and things, you can apply a little bit, do a patch test and see how you're doing with it. If that's okay, it can be applied to that too. Because if you've got a rash that's caused by a bacterial infection, it can really help with that. So that is the actual super tonic. Don't forget to label it and date it with the date that you made it. Then when you strain it, when you come to use it and bottle it, again, put the date on it so that you know when you made it. That way, if you make more batches, you're not going to use one first before the other. Okay, so that is our super tonic. Now there is a cheats way of making super tonic, and I must show you because this is something you can start using tomorrow if you had the ingredients. So I have powdered, as you saw, cayenne pepper, ground ginger, garlic, onion, and I've actually got wasabi. Couldn't find ground horseradish. You can get the minced horseradish, so you could always use that in your super tonic if you wanted to. So all I'm going to do with this is put in a teaspoon of each into my jar. So if you've got, if someone's sick in the house and you want to use something natural, then you can use this very, very quickly. So it's an amazing, amazing tonic. And I've had clients who have had really bad chest infections, and I've got them to do this along with making sure that they cut out mucus forming foods. So it's really important that we look at what foods we can eat and what foods we can actually ingest while we're sick, but we also need to look at what not to eat when we're sick. So if we've got coughs and colds and things, you don't really want to be eating mucus forming foods. And mucus forming foods are, you probably know, dairy is very mucus forming, and but so bananas. Bananas are extremely mucus forming, especially if you have blue eyes. Now the reason for that is, if you have blue eyes, you tend to evolve or have evolved in colder climes. Now you might have been born on the equator, but it doesn't mean to say that your genetics are actually compatible. So if we look at the blue eyes, we evolved in colder climes because we wanted to get as much light into our eyes as we possibly could. So us blue eye types make a lot of mucus anyway, but when we have things like bananas, because we're not actually genetically adapt to eating them, then we start having mucus. And so I don't say you can never have these foods, but if you feel yourself getting a cold or a cough or anything, just stop them. And that way you can really, what you can do of course is you can make some amazing broths and things with these ingredients that we've been talking about, and that can be incredibly nurturing. So the I'm just going to put the garlic powder. Oh, this smells divine. I wish we had smelly vision, because then you could smell how lovely this concoction actually smells. And so you can always mix this powder up as well, and what you could do is you could add some oil to it, and again you could apply it to the feet. Now you might think I'm a bit obsessed with the feet. Well, the feet are amazing, because if you know anything about reflexology, your feet are basically a mirror of the whole body. So if you massage something into your feet, it's going and helping the whole body. Just as an example, I used garlic oil with a client, and she had a really bad chest infection, and we massaged it onto her feet, and you could literally smell the garlic on her breath. 5 to 10 minutes later, it went in that quick, and she started to improve quite quickly. But it's quite interesting, hey? So that's why I get a bit obsessed with feet, because feet are amazing. We don't look after them like we should, really. And so there we have our cheese super tonic. Just need to give it a good shake. And cheese super tonic, nearly ready to go. I left it a day and really noticed the difference. Everyone loved it. So it's really, really effective and really beneficial. So this is one of the ones I did earlier, and this is super tonic that will need to be strained in a few weeks. But it smells oniony and garlicky and yeah, just really, really nice. Okay, so that is super tonic and a few of the ways of using these wonderful ingredients. So I'm going to go through now some of the other herbs that you may not think are as effective as they actually are. And as I say, all our culinary herbs have an antibiotic effect, antibacterial effect, anti-inflammatory effect to some extent or another, some more than others. But we can use them in lots and lots of very creative ways to help our bodies heal. So rosemary, you probably use it for lamb or various other things. I've got a lovely recipe in your booklet for pesto using rosemary and basil and a few other bits and bobs and garlic. And rosemary is an amazing herb for brain clarity. If you're doing an exam or if you need to be able to really concentrate, just getting a little bit of rosemary and making a herbal tea. You don't need to decoct this, so you can just pour boiling water over it and make an infusion. And so you pour a bit of boiling water over that. You can always add it to your favourite tea if you don't particularly like the rosemary taste. And there we have a wonderful brain tonic. It's awesome. You could use essential oils if you wanted to, if you get food grade essential oils, but why not use the real herb that's nice and fresh, maybe from your garden. Now, it's easy to dry. All you need to do is hang it out like that, and it'll dry very quickly, and you just have to put it in a jar. And there you have your own freshly dried or fresh rosemary. Wonderfully effective for circulation as well as brain food. So that's those. And then we've come to cardamom. Cardamom has a huge benefit. There's two types of cardamom. There's green and there's black. Now, green is the most used for foods that are savoury. Black's used by savoury and sweet in Indian culture. This is a wonderful digestive. If we look through cultures of all nationalities, all of the continents, we all have digestive formulas that are so easy to use and so wonderful. So if you look at cardamom as an example, we can add it to a food and it makes the food that's with it easier to digest. So for example, lentils and beans contain a component called lectin. Lectin is a protein and gluten belongs to this group. Lectins are very difficult for our bodies to break down unless you have it in the right way. So you need to really cook it. You need to cook it in, say, like a pressure cooker. And then if you add things like spices, like cardamom, to it, it actually helps your body to break it down so that you can digest it properly. Also, I love using cardamom in a tea. We've got a tea called Ayurvedic anti-stress tea, and cardamom is a big part of it. I add cardamom, we also add licorice, fennel, and also orange peel, and there's another cinnamon. And that is a delightful tea. Not only is it delightful tea, but I've made jellies out of it. And the jelly of the tea is, I make chewy jellies. I don't really like wobbly jelly, but I make chewy jellies, and they're just delightful. You can have them before or after a meal to help you digest, and also, as the tea says, it's anti-stress. So cardamom is a lovely tasting, so it can be used for tea or it can be used for cooking for medicinal purposes. As I say, there's more and more information in the booklet, so you don't need me to go over it completely. Next we have cinnamon. Cinnamon, you probably know, is extremely good for helping our blood sugars balance. It's really good for diabetics, it's good for pre-diabetics, and so it's lovely added to a tea, added to your food. It's really good with rice, and it can really help. So when you use the sticks, you need to really break it down. So if you're going to make a tea from it, you need to decoct it. And again, as I say, decoction is simmering it. So anything that's really tough, any herb that's really tough, like a root or a bark or very stiff leaves, they need to be decocted. So they need to be simmered so that you can get the chemical components out of them. So that's what a herbalist does. We get the chemical components out of our chosen herb. And so that is cinnamon. Then I also wanted to talk to you about salt. Salt has had a really bad rap over the years, and we've been told that salt is bad for our blood pressure, it's bad for this, it's bad for that. But salt in its pure form is not. If you have Himalayan pink salt, or even better, Himalayan black salt, then it can be really beneficial, because what it does, it contains minerals that are essential. Sodium is essential, especially if you're active. You need to make sure you have enough sodium and potassium balance within your body. Otherwise, you can really have problems. You have severe cramping. You can actually dehydrate without the sodium and potassium balance in sync. So we need to have really good quality salt. Now, I am not talking about table salt. Table salt has had all of the minerals stripped out of it, and then they've added back in an iodine source that isn't as well absorbed, and in actual fact can be toxic to your body. So normal table salt is bad for us, but real salt isn't. So I think I've covered all we needed to do today. There's an awful lot more, and there's so much more that I had real trouble sort of trying to decide on what to add in and what to not put in. So this is just an overview of how you can use your food to be your medicine. In our next workshop, we're going to be going over the weeds in your garden, or using what's in your own backyard. So we have an amazing amount of product just where we can just go and grab it if you know how to use it. And that's the benefit of it. It's not rocket science. This is not rocket science. It's just knowledge that we would have naturally have had in the family. But unfortunately, due to history, like I started with, it's got knocked around a bit and we've lost the knowledge that we knew. It's a bit like learning how to cook if your family don't cook, because normally you learn off your family. And so this is what we're trying to do, is trying to just open your eyes as to the simplicity that is our health. I hope you've enjoyed this, and if there are any questions about anything that we've talked about today, or if there's anything you would love to have covered, then please let us know. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.